What's up, Buncombe? It's Abby, and today we're here with a very exciting guest. We have our North Carolina State Auditor, Dave Boliek. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Abby. Thanks for having me.
Raise a flag of liberty, the land of the free, rejecting tyranny.
Yeah, we're so excited to finally have you on. We've had this on the books forever, just never got around to it. So I want to ask you a little bit of a fun question. It's back on election night. You just got the news that you got elected. What went through your head?
Well, that's a great question, Abby. It really is, and I've got a good story on that. As the election returns were coming in, we felt really good. It was sort of late in the night and had gotten around 11:30, and we knew what precincts were out. So we knew where the votes were out, and we could calculate pretty good that we felt good about the fact that we were going to win. But I was actually on the phone with Jefferson Griffin until about 3:45 a.m.
Wow.
on Wednesday morning after the Tuesday election, and he had gone up by about 10,000 votes at that time, and so hung up the phone with him. Had a lot of adrenaline myself, but I laid down for about an hour and a half. Got in the car the next morning to take my 14-year-old to the carpool drop off for school, and about 7:35 the phone rang on my phone. It showed up because my phone was connected to the car, and it showed up on the screen, and it was Senator Ted Budd calling to congratulate me. So
Wow.
that made a lot of my election experience worth it, just to get that phone call.
That's so awesome. And I know you got to go to the inauguration. How was that?
I did. It was a lot of fun. I got to go to three different balls, and got to meet some people. Never did get to see the president except up close. I did see him at one of the balls from sort of a distance, but uh, got to see a lot of the people that worked in the presidential campaign, and a lot of the good people that had helped not only get President Trump across the finish line, but myself across the finish line from North Carolina during the North Carolina ball. So that was a really good experience.
That sounds
And my
amazing.
wife got to dress up, and she looks fantastic in her dress.
I know I saw the pictures. You guys looked great.
No,
Um,
she looks great. I got I was fortunate enough to be able to stand beside her.
oh, that's so sweet. For those that may not be kind of familiar with what you do, can you kind of give us the rundown on what you do?
Sure, yeah. So I am the honor to be the elected North Carolina auditor, Republican, and proud to be actually, in terms of the executive branch, the highest ranking elected Republican to executive office in the state of North Carolina, which is an honor I never expected to find myself in, but certainly am very proud to be the state auditor. What we do is we generally hold government accountable for the spending of tax dollars. And that accountability goes to not only the dollars and cents through financial audits and making sure that appropriations from the North Carolina General Assembly are spent the way the General Assembly intends, but it goes to government efficiency and to the results of programs that are funded by the North Carolina General Assembly. So if the General Assembly funds a particular program, our office is charged with the ability to determine whether that program is giving a true return on investment to taxpayers. And quite frankly, in the past, the auditor's office has not been as strong in that arena. And so I have pledged to build that performance team up, and we're in the process of doing that. Interestingly enough, one of my primary opponents from the March 5th primary, Charles Dingy, is a deputy auditor in the auditor's office, and
Wow.
he's come on board. And so he's helping with that effort to beef up the performance end, specifically by helping us build what we're calling our rapid response team, so that we can be quick afoot to take care of maybe some smaller auditing questions that can help inform and be impactful to the public.
Wow, that sounds amazing. So what would your process be like, say, if you were to audit a place like Buncombe County?
Well, any institution or entity that we would audit, the first thing we would do is what I've instituted in our office is we call it the whiteboard process.
Mm-hmm.
So we whiteboard issues, and oftentimes I myself get in front of the group and will run the whiteboard session. So if we make a determination that we're going to audit an entity, organization that receives public dollars, we'll whiteboard it and determine, what are the goals and what are the parameters of the auditor? What are our standards? What are we looking for? Why are we doing the audit? And once we determine that we have a solid purpose for doing an audit, then we make a determination of what areas we're going to look at, right? So are we going to take a look at finances? Are we going to take a look at just simple efficiency? Are we going to take a look at program results? What is our ultimate question, right? So a lot of times it may not be whether the money is being spent. It might be a question of whether the money is being spent efficiently or effectively. Okay. And in other cases, you might have a situation where you're asking, well, is all the money being spent in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with that, if we do determine, for example, that there is what you would describe as malfeasance, somebody that is, or money is being stolen, right, in some way, shape, or form. We've I recently reinvigorated and reorganized our investigative unit.
Wow.
And so if you look at the authorizing statute for the state auditor's office, it says that we not only audit, but we can investigate as well. And so I put a 20-plus year prosecutor in charge of that investigative unit. And so if we do find what we believe might be malfeasance, we turn it over to our investigative unit and then go from there.
Wow.
That's
That,
kind of a quick summary. There's a lot of detail in
yeah.
that, but quickly we whiteboard it, determine the scope, and go forward.
yeah, that sounds like a lot.
You ready to come to work for us, Happy?
You, you do not want me anywhere near anything with numbers, I promise. So, as you're talking about like the waste and the fraud of taxpayer dollars is a big concern. So, what areas of state government do you believe need the most scrutiny?
Yeah, well, a couple things. One is, the North Carolina Auditor's Office performs about 100 statutory required audits every year. And those audits are financial audits, and they are mostly of our universities, community colleges, and different institutions and agencies within state government. And we continue to strive to do quality work in that sort of space, so to speak, in that area, right? We want to touch those universities and make sure that they're stewards of the taxpayer dollars and a revenue that they get through tuition. In addition to that, we have focused on the auditor's office on a couple things. One is the Department of Motor Vehicles, Division of Motor Vehicles. During the campaign, I pledged to the people of North Carolina that I would audit from floor to ceiling the DMV, and we've begun that process. We're in the middle of that audit. I put 14 people on our team on that audit, and I'm getting daily updates on where we are. That is proceeding pretty quickly. We're going to be able to give the public not only targeted audit points within the DMV as a whole, but we're going to be able to give what we're describing as some one-pagers on the progress with respect to our full audit of the DMV. So really excited about it. It's all new, so we're developing it as we go. And I think the DMV is going to be a good test case. We're also looking at disaster relief funding across North Carolina. We want to make sure that those dollars are spent and spent effectively. By doing that, one of the things that we've stood up is something called a Helene tracking dashboard. So the dollars that are spent in Western North Carolina, we are tracking those dollars, which is new for the auditor's office. Never been done before. We created a dashboard on the website so you can go to the auditor's easiest way to find the auditor's website is just put it in the Google machine and go North Carolina Auditor, and it'll pop up. Go to the website and you will find a dashboard on the website that tracks dollars spent. And that, I think, can be really effective and a transparent way of showing taxpayers and even individuals who are making decisions on policy, where the money's going. And we stood that up. There's the robustness of it is getting better every day as we are able to populate the site with more data. We're also taking a look back audit at what's called the North Carolina Office of Resiliency and Recovery, NCORE. And that was the organization set up by former Governor Cooper to respond to disasters in eastern North Carolina, specifically Hurricane Florence and Hurricane Matthew. Bipartisan across the aisle in North Carolina, Democrats and Republicans describe NCORE as a complete disaster in and of itself. The waste of taxpayer dollars and the unaccountability of NCORE is disgraceful, in my opinion. And our audit is going to take a look at that, and we're going to find out where the money went and why it wasn't spent and hasn't been spent as effectively as it should have been. Hopefully that'll help us help inform us moving forward with Helene recovery on some best practices. But I think the tracking of dollars helps us get ahead of the problem with NCORE.
Yeah.
So I know that was a lot, but
No, it's
there's a
great.
lot in that space that we're committed to doing in the auditor's office.
So when you do those audits, what are the next steps after that? When you've completed it, what do you do after?
Yeah, so good question. And so on the in-court audit, which we will have that completed probably around the first to mid part of June of this year, that'll be a complete look back. Our first responsibility will be to go to what's called the Joint Oversight Committee in the legislature. Mm-hmm. And that is a group of state senators and state representatives who are in charge of oversight in government. And we're going to give a full report pointing out down to line items exactly where the money was spent, how it was spent, and we'll give that report to the legislature. And then I'm going to travel across the state giving that report to citizens who are interested in hearing it from me on the details. Additionally, of course, it'll be posted on our website, and people will be able to read that audit. And we're committed to a new way of releasing audits too, Abby. We want to write these audits in a way that everyday North Carolinians can understand and really get impactful information.
So talking about how they can understand. So how do you think that we can help people improve their financial literacy in that aspect?
Well, I mean, that's a challenging thing. Mm-hmm. When I've been blessed and very fortunate to have a college education. And people who know my background know I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for my undergrad degree, and then availed myself of the private school system, private university system by going to Campbell University to get my law degree and my master's in business administration. But while at Carolina, I was a journalism major. My father was a journalist, so I thought I was going to follow in his footsteps. But during that, while I was getting my degree, I was in a class, and the professor of that class said to me, he said, "If you don't remember anything from this class, remember one thing that you should do." And truth be told, that's the only thing I do remember from that class specifically, and that is read a good newspaper every day. And so from that day forward, I've tried. Of course, nobody's perfect, and I haven't done it every single day of my life, but I try to read the Wall Street Journal every day. Wow. And that's a good publication. When you're talking about financial literacy, if you pick up the Wall Street Journal and read it 2 to 3 times a week, mm-hmm. you can really increase your financial literacy, because a lot of the articles written in the Wall Street Journal will use a lot of finance terms and a lot of finance concepts. But as part of the article, they'll explain them. Mm-hmm. And then on the weekend, there's a section called Off Duty. And in that Off Duty section, and then in the weekend edition, there's Off Duty, and then there's a section called Review. And in those sections of the newspaper, oftentimes you'll find really good articles that relate specifically to financial literacy. So one, I would recommend reading a good newspaper, and the Wall Street Journal is a good place to start. I'd also recommend watching Fox Business in the morning, and maybe spending 15 to 20 minutes listening to Fox Business in the morning, and you can really pick up a lot of good information there.
Yeah. So I want to change the subject a little bit. You're on the Council of State. So I'd love to ask you about your experience on that so far, and kind of explain what that is.
Well, it's good question. So the Council of State is the group of 10 executives who are elected statewide. There's 10 of us. It starts with the governor. So you have the governor, lieutenant governor, After the lieutenant governor, you have the secretary of state. Then you have the attorney general. You have the state auditor. You have the labor commissioner, Commissioner Farley, newly elected labor commissioner. You have the agriculture commissioner, Commissioner Troxler. You have the insurance commissioner, Commissioner Causey, who's elected to that position. You have the treasurer, Treasurer Briner. So those are the 5 Republicans that I've named. And then in addition to that, you have the Secretary of Public Instruction. So there are 10 of us. And we meet once a month and determine, our decisions are based on, we have to make decisions based on a lot of things, most of which involve the sale of property owned by the state of North Carolina. If the state of North Carolina owns a piece of property, it can't be sold without approval of the Council of State. We also make decisions on borrowing large sums of money, and we make decisions. The Council of State is the body that made the decision, for example, to shut the state of North Carolina down. And so those are some of the heady decisions that are made there. My experience has been pretty good. Everybody seems to be, there's a lot of new members of the Council of State. You have the governor was the attorney general, so he's been on the Council of State for 8 years previous, but he's new in his role as governor. I'm new. Commissioner Farley's new. Treasurer Briner's new. The Secretary of Public Instruction is new, and the Attorney General is new. So we have a large number of new members. So it's been interesting to get to know people, and everybody's sort of trying to feel their way out around. Interesting story. You want to get a story about
Yeah,
the Council
absolutely.
of State? So Council of State meets in the Department of Transportation boardroom right now. And so Commissioner Farley and I usually show up about the same time. And so we find ourselves standing in line at the security desk to get in, and you show them your ID, and they give you a visitor badge and all this kind of stuff at the Department of Transportation, which I can audit, by the way. But we go through the security, and Commissioner Farley and I sort of kind of shake our heads like, why are we going through all this? And then, so we went through this last Council of State meeting and did all that, and then as we were leaving, we were following Secretary Helene Marshall, who's been on the Council of State for almost 30 years. And we were following behind her, and she was exiting out of a different door. And so Commissioner Farley and I sort of said, well, let's follow her. So we followed her, and she sort of waved at the guy standing at the door, and there we found her car parked in the front parking lot and the governor's car there. And clearly that's where the Democrats go in. So, so Commissioner Farley and I decided maybe next time I think we'll avail ourselves of the secret back entrance to the Council of State meeting. But I don't mind going through security in full disclosure. I just thought that was kind of a funny story.
That is funny. I know, I'm sure on that council, there's not always all unanimous. I'm sure you do butt heads at some point. How do you deal with resistance that you meet in those situations?
Well, actually, so far it's all been unanimous, although there have been several votes that I have questioned and really thought about. I think it's really important, even on what might be a minor decision, like the sale of a piece of property, for example, that myself and my staff do some homework on and look into. And one of the things that, I'll give you 2 things that got changed as a result of my leadership and Commissioner Farley's leadership. With respect to Commissioner Farley, when we first went to our first meeting, there was a schedule for the Council of State to meet only 6 times during the year 2025. And typically the Council of State meets once a month. And so he suggested that we go back to once a month, and the governor ultimately agreed. And so now we are back to once a month. So that was a good thing for Commissioner Farley to have brought up, right, to move us forward for monthly meetings. For me, I had problems with the way the Department of Transportation, for example, was wording certain sales of property where it wasn't clear. And there was actually a lease that we needed to approve. It was a lease of some property at the airport in Raleigh. And, I'm a lawyer, and I don't profess to being the best lawyer ever. I think I'm a good lawyer, right? But I'm not the ultimate best, right? And I'm certainly not a constitutional scholar. But I do have an MBA, and I am the elected state auditor, and I read the description of this lease in the material, and I could not make heads or tails out of it. And if I can't make heads or tails out of it, certainly many members of the general public might not be able to make heads or tails out of it. So I had a real problem with that, and I let my displeasure with the way they were writing stuff up and describing things known. And I will give the Department of Transportation credit, because at the very next meeting they came up with much more clearer, easier to understand descriptions. So you can provide some leadership in small little ways that might make a difference to help North Carolina move forward, and hope to be able to continue to do that at the Council of State.
Yeah. So you're talking about being a lawyer. How do you think your legal experience has helped you in this role?
Well, been here about 70 days now, so right at 10 weeks I've been in office, and a couple things that I can point to. One, as a practicing lawyer, I worked at a small firm, was a partner at the firm. While Fayetteville, North Carolina is a fairly large town or city, it, in a large respects, a lot of things about Fayetteville are small town North Carolina. And so it's almost, I had what amounts to similar to a small town North Carolina law practice, where I dealt with a lot of different people on a lot of different issues. And so most of the time I spent my day working to solve people's problems, not necessarily practicing law. And so the experience of working with individuals, regardless of who they may be, whether they're the richest person in town or a homeless person, trying to figure out their problems and helping them navigate issues. I think that experience has really helped me. I think helped me to have argued cases in front of judges, so I can hopefully communicate to the public and to you and to your viewers what the auditor's office does and what our role is. So I think that's been helpful. I also think having an MBA is very helpful, because to your point, the financial literacy, I don't have to do a lot of homework on that. I know how to read a financial statement. I understand the auditing process. So all of those things I think and running a small business as well, has really helped me to ask, I think, some really good questions. I hope. We'll see.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of enthusiasm around all the things that you're doing. Is there anything you're really excited about?
Well, excited about the DMV audit, but I'm probably more universally excited about sort of picking up the lead of President Trump and the efforts around government efficiency. In North Carolina, we've been blessed, really, to have had a Republican legislature since 2010. So they have done a fantastic job as stewards of the money in North Carolina and the spending in North Carolina. So we don't have sort of the runaway train that exists in Washington, D.C. in North Carolina. I'll give you a quick statistic that maybe says something to that. In North Carolina, the per capita debt. So what that means is that the entire debt, sort of like, if you have a credit card, you have credit card debt. So the state of North Carolina borrows money, and so we have, in essence, a credit card, right, where we borrowed money. If you took the total amount of money owed by the state of North Carolina and divided it by the population, our per capita debt is $416 a person. Wow. Okay, and that sounds like a lot of money, and it's a lot of money to me. But when you know that the per capita debt in North Carolina, per every citizen in North Carolina, of the federal debt, so if you took all the money that the federal government owes, divided it by the number of people in North Carolina, it's $106,000 a person. That, Abby, is runaway spending out of control. And so that is why the president's efforts on government efficiency and taking a hard look and making some hard decisions early on is so important. We've got to get a handle on this debt. Or you're a young person, you're going to be stuck paying the bill. I'm an old gray hair guy. I'll probably have to pay it in some way, shape, or form, and my kids will too. But, we want to work to make sure that you have a productive and prosperous career and ability to live and work and love North Carolina without and in the United States without that kind of debt load. So it's really important to go ahead and take the bull by the horns, get some of this debt under control. We can find some efficiency in North Carolina, and our office is going to lead the way on that. Along with the North Carolina General Assembly, and we're going to take a hard look at government efficiency where we can, make things work better for North Carolina, starting with the DMV. Needs to be more customer service friendly.
Those lines are insane.
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 Insane. And clearly, those lines do not exist everywhere in the country. So it's a real question of management, a question of allocation of resources. And our office is really taking a look line by line at the finances right now of the DMV. And I'm excited about the audit reports that we're going to have forthcoming in the coming days and weeks.
So, how can your constituents get involved in the auditing process?
Well, we have a tip line, and the tip line is 1-800, and it's something tip, 830-TIP, I think is what it is. I almost had it memorized. I can double check it.
This is why technology's our friend.
And technology is great, and you can go and find it pretty easy. I'm pretty sure I'm right about the tip line number. You can also go to the website, which is auditor.nc.gov, and you can report fraud and waste. And it's 1-800-730-8477, 730-8477, 1-800, and or tip line at ncauditor.gov. And that's how individual citizens can help in the auditing process.
I love that. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our listener viewers?
I really wanted to say what an honor it is to be the North Carolina auditor and to be a member of the Council of State. I don't take the position lightly. I take it seriously. I hired a young man. His name is Dave Fox, really nice guy. He worked previously for Senator Benton Sawry out of Johnston County. He was his legislative assistant. And I've hired him to work in our office on our legislative team that deals with the legislature. And after 30 days in office, Dave and I walked across the street to the legislature. My office just happens to be right across the street from the legislature. And we were crossing the street, and I looked over at Dave and I said, "Dave, how do you think I'm doing?" And he said, "Well, I think you're doing pretty good." And I said, "Well, how do you think the team thinks I'm doing? Like, what are the auditors that work in the auditor's office and the people on the team think? What do they think?" And he says, "Well, they've got one question." And I said, "Dave, they got to have more than one question." And he said, "Nope, it's pretty consistent. They've got one question." I said, "What's that question?" They say, "Is that guy ever going to stop coming into the office every day at 8 o'clock in the morning?" So I'm taking the job seriously. I'm there every single day working on the behalf of the taxpayers of North Carolina.
I love it. Great. Well, we're so grateful for your time, and we're so grateful for all you're doing for our state.
Well, I'm grateful for you, Abby, and all you do here in Asheville and Buncombe County.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for listening.